I got up this morning, turned on my radio. I was checking out the surfing scene to see if I would go. And when the DJ tells me that the surfing is fine, that's when I know my baby and I will have a good time. Going surfing off, dip-dip-dip, surfing off, dip-dip, surfing off, dip-dip-dip, surfing off, dip-dip, off, off, dip-dip-dip, off, off, dip-dip, surfing off, dip-dip-dip, surfing off, dip-dip. Surfing is the only life, the only way for me. Now surf, surf with me.
Please don't let me argue anymore. I won't make you worry like before.
What's up, Hawthorne? Well, what's up is that we're here at Best Buy to check out the new album by, well, I'll tell you, it's not the Sprung Monkey. It's actually by the Beach Boys. They have a new album called Hawthorne, California, the birthplace of a musical legacy. Their CD celebrates their 40th anniversary in the music business, and it all started right here in Hawthorne. The CD has a lot of studio sessions, rarities, alternate versions, promos, everything you want for the Beach Boy fan. And if you look on the rack here, there's a whole bunch of other Beach Boys. I noticed the famous Pet Sounds CD. This record inspired the Beatles to do Sgt. Pepper's. Of course, the Beach Boys are most known for their surfing sound, Surfing USA and other ones like that. This one here even has a Hawthorne High School logo on their cover, the sign on their cover. Yeah.
Got me rocking and a rolling, rocking and a reeling, bobber and bop.
Hey, Louis, where you going? Over here. We got to go over and try to find the house. 3701, 119th Street. Meet me over there, okay?
1, 2, 3, go.
Well, it was here. 40 years ago, this was the Brian Wilson house where the Wilsons lived. Brian, Carl, and his brother Dennis. They were the Beach Boys, in case you don't know. And what we're going to do today is take a tour of Hawthorne back in the days of the Beach Boys and find out where they hung out, what they did. Liverpool, England, Hibbing, Minnesota, Port Arthur, Texas, Asbury Park, New Jersey, and of course Hawthorne, California. What do all these towns have in common? Well, they're all home to legendary rock stars like Bob Dylan, the Beatles, Bruce Springsteen, Janis Joplin. And right here in Hawthorne is where the Beach Boys grew up. And we're going to talk to someone who, rather than become a legendary rock star, he stayed here, became a lawyer, and is now on the city council. He's City Councilman Steve Anderson. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning.
I understand you were friends with Brian Wilson.
Yes, for a long time.
And maybe you could tell us a little bit how it was like growing up in those days in Hawthorne.
Well, this is where the house was, and this is where some of the first records were created. I remember coming over here many, many times when I was in high school and junior high.
I understand you also played ball with them. Maybe tell us a little bit about your experiences.
Yeah, well, Brian was, in addition to being heavily involved in music, was always a sports fan. And loved sports, loved baseball and football both. We played football one year, and he played baseball on the varsity for 2 years. And I think he loved baseball more than football. And he was a real sports nut. We also coached in the recreation league here in Hawthorne. Coached a team called the Pirates back in 1960 and 61. And Brian loved kids, loved baseball.
Did he ever talk to you and say, hey, I'm going to be a rock star, or I want to join a group, or it just happened?
His career just kind of happened. His dad had a short musical career himself, and Brian was, of course, he was Brian. And his brother Dennis was a drummer. Carl was a guitar player, and cousin Mike Love was a singer, and Al Jardine was a member of the Beach Boys, was also a member of our football team. Brian was just very happy to be able to make money singing and performing. Loved music, loved to write, loved to produce. Producing was his number one thrill, number one area. He loved that more than anything. And great sense of humor, wonderful sense of humor. A good guy and a good friend. Always been a good friend, never got stuck up or in love with himself or anything like that. Always a good guy. I can't even begin to tell you, but it's hard to summarize a 40-year friendship, a 45-year friendship. We first met in 1955. We've been friends ever since.
Well, this is where it all really started for the Beach Boys. Right here on the campus of Hawthorne High. Their first records were teenage stuff like cars, girls, and of course surfing. And of course they were great records back then. #1 hits started coming out. And after they were famous even, 1969, they came back and played the Prom here. And in 1989, Brian Wilson was Grand Marshal for the Hawthorne Parade. And also that year, Tom Quintana of HCTV's Hawthorne Today interviewed Brian and asked him if he ever thought when he was a kid that he would be famous as he was.
Well, not really, no. How could I have, you know? I mean, there would be no way that I could have, but it's sure nice to go back and reminisce, you know. My father was a little bit rough on me, sure. But my friends helped me through high school, you know, so I'm sure that made a difference.
The Beach Boys have always had the image of fun, sun, and surf. Let's hear what Brian had to say about the Beach Boys' image.
We did our songs, and people thus made our image for us. They fed us back with what they thought our image was. It's a funny thing. We kind of would make the music, and then the journalists all around the country would then thus, over the years, slowly shaped and molded our image, which was California, sunshine, and girls, and the seashore and the sand, you know.
Brian then shared his thoughts on success.
If it comes fast, sometimes it can throw you for a loop, you know, and it confuse you. You know, you got to keep that bigger picture in mind as to what you're doing and know a little about everything, just a little about everything, in order to know what direction to go in.
Oh, hey, there you are. We're standing here in front of the Hawthorne High School sign. Now, this sign is not the same sign that was on their album cover. It was donated to the school by the class of 1968. At one time, the Beach Boys were just as big a group as the Beatles. Now we have a clip from the VH1 special, The History of Rock and Roll, and let's ask Brian if he was jealous at all of the Beatles' success.
When we saw what happened with the Beatles, we got together and had a meeting and said, look, now what are we going to do here? We're getting eclipsed by a group called the Beatles from London. Oh my God, we were completely jealous as hell. I guess we might have turned our motors on. Trying to get something happening where we would be better musically than the Beatles.
We always take my car 'cause it's never been beat, and we've never missed yet with the girls we meet. None of the guys go steady 'cause it wouldn't be right to leave the best girl home now on Saturday night. I get her round, 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 I get her round, round, get her round, 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 I get her round, round.
Well, when some loud bragger tries to put us down, I say, what's the matter, buddy? Ain't you heard of our school? We're #1 in the state. Well, Brian Wilson and Al Jardine both used to play football here at Hawthorne High when they were #1 in the state.
Brian Wilson and I were classmates right here at Hawthorne High School. I knew the whole Wilson family, Murray, Audrey, Dennis, Carl, and their cousin Mike Love. Their place was like a second home to me, and they were always singing together, always singing harmonies. They loved to do that, especially Brian. At Hawthorne, we were on the football team together. We played in the backfield, and I remember once we were in a huddle, and the cheerleaders were singing the Hawthorne Fight song. And right in the middle of the huddle, Brian started singing the melody. Onward Cougars, onward Cougars. And of course, our favorite play was the double reverse handoff with 4-part harmony.
Ready, break!
Music was a sidetrack for me at first. I was going to be a psychologist. You know, I wanted to be a psychologist, and I wanted to be able to teach people about the first 2 years of life. They're very delicate years of life, you know. And the Beach Boys had a record right in the middle of my junior college episode, so we took a left turn.
We're here with Dr. Don Flaherty, and he's the band director, current band director, music teacher. And this piano here, we found out after exhaustive research, was the one Brian Wilson actually played on back in the 60s. Don, back then, Fred Morgan was a teacher, and he had an assignment, sort of a classical music assignment. Brian turned in the song Surfin' USA, which was, of course, a #1 hit, and at the time he got an F for it. If you had this type of student turn in something like that, would you flunk them because they didn't do it right, or would you, what would you do?
Wow, that's a hard question. It really depends on the assignment. I think I would encourage the student, but if the assignment was specifically you had to do a classical piece, I would probably have to flunk them. But I would then turn around and encourage them to also pursue the music that they're creating on their own. I think a well-rounded musician needs to be able to do all types of music, both classical and rock and roll, or what today's kids are doing, rap music, that kind of thing. I don't think it's a good thing to discourage creativity in any way, but also you have certain things you have to do as far as classes, as far as assignments and that kind of thing. So it's kind of a hard call. It really depends on what the assignment was.
Well, in the composition class and music writing class, Brian was asked to write a 120 measure sonata for the piano. And he wrote 32 measures of music with chords in it. And those chords later turned into be, of course, the surfing song that became so popular. And that's why he can laugh going to the bank with $1 million with the F that I gave him. But the F came about because it wasn't 120 measures. It didn't change keys 5 times, and it was full of parallelism, which he's made and capitalized on, and backward progressions. And Brian knows that, and so we kind of laughed together about it. But I think the thing that comes out of all this was the fact that a good old pea-picking Hawthorne High School in a small town could offer you the classes and the training and the opportunity that you had at that time to use that. And he did. He used it to his advantage.
Well, there certainly was a lot of good vibrations coming out of this piano. So let's go check in with Brian and see what he has to say about creating lyrics. Good vibration.
I love colorful crochet and the way the sunlight plays upon her head.
The lyrics of Little Deuce Coupe came first over the music, with a guy named Roger Christian who wrote the lyrics. But most of my own songs were written with, inspired by the sound or the music vibration before the lyrics were developed. I have a theory of music. I feel that lyrics are created by the melody, although it's not a logical process. It's not something you'd say, yeah, but I mean, we actually thought every word to the melody, but the melody itself creates the lyric, although people think that they're actually creating it themselves.
We're here with Harvey Hoyo, principal of Hawthorne High School, and the Beach Boys have been highlighting Hawthorne their whole career, basically. Now they're coming out with an album called Hawthorne. Maybe you could tell us what attention that the media has been bestowing upon Hawthorne High.
Sure, I'll be happy to. I think it's really exciting that we have, the Beach Boys are one of many famous personalities that have come out of Hawthorne High, and that is exciting. Lately we've had a movie company come in where they were wanting to use some of our sites. They were taking pictures of our buildings to recreate a stage for a movie production for the Beach Boys. We've also had some excitement because a piano that was donated, I believe, by Brian Wilson, one of the singers, is still on our campus today, and I believe you did take some shots of that. So that has been getting notoriety. It's really unfortunate, but many of our students are not familiar with the Beach Boys, so some of our teachers have been playing some of the music in class, in their history classes, for example, to just remind them of this one type of surfer music that is for our students, outdated and outmoded, but certainly for a lot of adults, including myself, we were very much into that in the early 70s and even through the 70s and early 80s. So, yeah, the Beach Boys still are making an impact here at Hawthorne High.
Okay, great.